Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast with your host, Johnny Gyorke. You have the power to overcome challenges and fears. Let my voice and the voice of many others show you how to transform these challenges into opportunities. To learn more about future podcasts and read episode show notes, check out my website at www.thepowerofyourvoice.com.
Welcome back to the Power of Your Voice podcast. Today's guest is Blake Bauer. This is episode 60. Blake is the author of the international best-selling book, You Were Not Born to Suffer. Each year, he has helped thousands of people who cannot find effective support from conventional psychology, medicine, or religion. Blake is a world-renowned teacher and speaker with an intense background in psychology, alternative medicine, nutrition, traditional healing, and mindfulness meditation. Based on both his personal experiences overcoming deep suffering, addiction, and adversity, as well as his professional success with over 100,000 people worldwide that he has helped, Blake's pioneering work integrates with what he's found to be the most effective approaches to optimal mental, emotional, and physical health. Today's episode is extremely powerful. We're going to be talking about the keys to sharpening your life, the life that you've always wanted, how to forgive, how to overcome anger. For anybody out there who has children who might have some anger issues, this is going to be an exceptional podcast that you're really going to love and something you definitely will want to share with others. Blake is also going to talk about how meditation has literally saved his life and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, get a piece of paper and pen. You're probably going to want to take some notes. Let's get started. Blake, welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast. It's great to have you on, man. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Johnny. I'm happy to be here.
You're very welcome. So I want to get started into your childhood, because I know you faced a lot of challenges. Your parents got divorced and you've been through a lot. Now, what would you say to probably the three biggest challenges you've ever faced in your life, and how did those help you shift your life?
Well, those are some very loaded questions. I think I'd start with, I never learned how to understand my emotions or how to express my emotions in a healthy way. And as a young man, instead of knowing how to talk about my feelings, so as a young man, instead of understanding how to talk about my feelings, I turned to drugs, alcohol, and food, and then developed some very self-destructive habits of repressing my emotions through getting drunk, through getting high, and through overeating. So overcoming that habit for me was probably one of the most challenging and the most important. Tied up with that was because I never learned how to really talk about my feelings, which now I talk about as being a key to valuing yourself and loving yourself, is understanding what you're feeling and what you need and what you want, and being able to honor it on a daily basis. Because I didn't know how to do those things, and thus I didn't know how to love myself, I sought love outside of myself all the time. So I was always seeking approval and attention and acceptance, particularly from my social circle as a young man. And so that was a self-destructive habit of, looking for security, looking for approval, looking for people's validation outside of myself, that led to a lot of pain and a lot of suffering for me. So I'd say that is second. And then I think I've been in a lot of relationships with women throughout my, journey. From when I was a young age, I, fell in love when I was 5. I think I had my first girlfriend, and I've always been a bit of a lover in that regard, and I've been lucky to date a lot of great women in my life. But tied up with the two habits I mentioned before was I used to betray myself and compromise myself and hurt myself for love in relationships with women. And that, again, goes back to me never really learning how to honor myself, value myself, talk about my feelings, and understand that I was worthy of having feelings and worthy of having my own needs and my own desires. And I had this really self-destructive habit of thinking I always had to please a woman for her to love me, that I wasn't lovable just the way I was. And that was because I never learned how to value myself intrinsically, just for who I am and what I bring to the table, just my presence, And all those go back to childhood wounds that a lot of people really struggle with. So overcoming that habit, not just with family and friends and socially, but particularly in my intimate life with women, was a big thing for me. And so thankfully today I've learned how to value myself at a very high level and know that I'm worthy of, really great things in a relationship, which took me a long time. And I think for a lot of us takes a long time. So those were the first three things that came to mind. I could probably keep naming things, but I'll pause there.
I'm thinking, especially for us guys, I'm wondering, do you think a lot is like generational kind of wounds that we get from our fathers, that kind of thing? Like, was your dad someone that would explain to you, hey, I'm upset or something, or he just like backlash and he was very angry?
Absolutely. Yeah. So actually, I had two different fathers. I had my biological father who was abusive and struggled with drug addiction, and then wasn't in my life after about, I saw him very little from the age of 5 to 12, and then I didn't see him at all really until I was 19. And then I was raised primarily by my stepfather, who was very stoic, never talked about his emotions, just got angry, used that to control and manipulate his environment. So I never had any healthy role models of a man that was vulnerable, that was sensitive, in tune with his emotions, and strong, and at the same time, and able to communicate, what was going on for him. And so that was part of why I struggled so much to learn those things. And then, yes, I do feel that it's a fact that represents a larger social narrative that a lot of men are going through. Is it masculine to be vulnerable and to talk about your feelings? Am I still strong? Am I still attractive to my partner? And I think a lot of guys that I talk to express that they get mixed messages, because on one hand, a lot of women want them to be open and vulnerable and talk about their feelings, but then the implication of a man talking about his feelings and his needs means that a woman has to cultivate the presence and the awareness and the desire to understand and care about their partner and take responsibility for things that they do that hurts their partner as well. So sometimes women say they want a man who's very open and vulnerable and emotional, but then, like the saying, be careful what you ask for. They don't necessarily know what to do with it when it comes along. And then sometimes men get mixed messages. They don't feel that it's, that it's attractive to be sensitive. And I feel like a lot of guys, especially today, are going through a transformation in terms of figuring out what's right for them and what their identity is as a man in relationship to their mental and emotional health and vulnerability.
Now, do you think there's like, if we would go back to mankind, I don't know, maybe 1,000 years ago, is there like a reason why we have been the way we are for such a long time? Why are guys so defensive? Why won't they talk about their feelings? I mean, there must be some kind of deeper reason for that.
Well, I think that there's two main answers that come to my mind. So, going back 1,000 years, life was, I think, pretty different. I don't think we had as much distraction as we do today. We live in a very fast-paced world right now. But if we go back 1,000 years, I think, and beyond, I mean, our origins as men, as, let's say, hunter-gatherers, we were designed and evolved to hunt, to provide, to protect, and to fight. And so I think that we were used to just internalizing a lot of those inner vulnerabilities because we had to survive and to rise to the challenge of whatever we had to do in whatever time and place. Obviously, it depends on where we lived and what the society was like at that time. But going back, our roots are pretty primitive. Being animals living off the land, in a lot of way, going out and hunting for our food or farming and then our job was to protect the women. And I think if you go back to 1,000 years and then thousands of years, I don't think a lot of the social constructs we live in today, like marriage and monogamy, were as common either. Men had multiple mates sometimes, and we're a lot less civilized in many ways. And so then, but then fast forward to where we are today, we are overcoming a lot of our primitive, basic natures, like our always living in fear, being in fight or flight. We live in a time where there's more material wealth than there's ever been, more comfort than there's ever been, particularly obviously in the developed world. And so I think a lot of men are having to overcome those basic parts of their nature that come from fear, that come from survival, that come from anger, that come from, kill or be killed kind of parts of us that are in our subconscious. And then with that is this whole dilemma that we were starting to talk about, is like, how much of my feelings are okay to feel and talk about? And does that take away from my ability to provide and protect and be strong and be attractive, to a mate? And so I think these are kind of these two forces that are, I think a lot of modern men are grappling with inside of themselves. How do I be strong? How do I be own my strength as a man, but at the same time own that more sensitive part of us that is there, and that the women in our life, or the partners in our life, and the children in our life and our families, they actually need us to be in tune with those parts of us as well. So we have this healthy, balanced existence where we have an open heart and we can talk about anything, but at the same time, we feel like we can provide, protect, offer a sense of security both to ourselves and the people around us. So, these are major themes that I think a lot of men struggle with.
Yeah, well, and so it seems like a lot of these things that we've kind of been instilled to us as kids thousands of years ago, we needed these things to survive. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. But now, because we're more human, we get to continue to work on this stuff and to express our feelings, all that kind of stuff. Because otherwise, too, this stuff goes on to our children as well. And it's not something that we want, but it subconsciously kind of happens.
Exactly.
Now, what I wanted to go into like anger, because especially now in society, there's a lot of very angry people. Like I remember a couple of years ago, it's something I'll never forget. I was sitting in my car at a red light, and there was this car next to me, and this guy who was just smashing on the steering wheel. I mean, he was so angry, so extremely angry. This guy could have literally killed somebody. That's how angry he looked like. How can people, for anybody who's listening to this right now, who's dealing with anger, their kids are angry, their spouse is angry, how can they overcome this? Because this is something that can destroy your career, it can destroy your marriage, destroy your relationships with every single person that you love. And it's something you really got to work on, but sometimes people just don't know what to do. What is something that they can do to overcome these anger issues that they have?
Well, Johnny, I think there are a lot of tools, and I'm going to talk about it from two different perspectives. In Chinese medicine, we talk about treating the root and treating the branch. So the root is the root cause, like the roots of a tree, the root cause of the issue. And then there's the symptoms, like what we see as the angry behavior. So I'm going to talk about both. So if we talk about the symptoms, one way to start working with those symptoms are, so writing a letter, for example. If you're really upset at somebody, you can write them a letter and just say, dear mom, dad, dear Bob, I'm so angry at you because ... And in a letter like that, you can say anything you want to say and not filter it, with the idea that you're just writing it to write it. You don't have to give it to them. And so you can kind of dump whatever you want to dump and say whatever you want to say. And that's really healthy, because I love this quote from the Buddha where he says, holding on to anger with the intention of throwing it at someone else, you're the one who gets burned. It's like, holding on to anger is like holding on to hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. But meanwhile, you're holding on to it, and you're going to burn, and you're going to become toxic, and you're going to get sick, and you're going to hurt everybody around you. So you got to find a way to get it out is basically the key. So anything you can do. So writing a letter is great. I love exercise. So for me, if I'm stressed or I'm frustrated or I'm angry, I love going to the gym, and I love, lifting weights or doing cardio. And for me, that's a really great way to channel what could be self-destructive energy and move it. So I think exercise is really important. Even going for a walk when you're angry can help you shift the anger that's inside of you. I think having a punching bag, for example, and punching a punching bag, or hitting the punching bag with something, finding a way to like release that pent up energy so you don't take it out on yourself or somebody else is really important. And then if we start to go down now into the root cause, my view of anger is that the root cause of anger is hurt. Okay, so like if you say something to me and I get angry, what's underneath the anger is really I felt hurt by what you said, how I interpreted what you said or what you did. And so one thing is getting really good at expressing yourself when you feel hurt. And a lot of people are scared or self-conscious when they feel hurt. So it's almost easier to come off as angry when the truth is if you had said something or done something to me and I felt hurt about it and I responded with anger, underneath that hurt, which if I had the tools, I could say, Johnny, I feel really hurt right now because of X, Y, and Z. And if you really care about me, then you're going to listen and you're going to hear me. Whereas what most of us do is instead of saying, hey, Johnny, I feel really hurt, what I would maybe do is say, Johnny, you effing piece of, I'll start swearing at you. I'll start calling you names. And as soon as I say you, and I start sending that kind of negative, toxic energy towards you, your walls are going to come up. Your ego is going to come up. Your defensive walls are going to come up. And then it just becomes an argument of two people attacking each other who may actually care about each other, but their defense mechanisms and their survival mechanisms have been triggered. And so their walls come up and they do whatever they need to do to push away the perceived threat. And often anger is our way of pushing away the perceived threat, the thing or the person that hurt us. But if we go one step deeper, the way to really heal anger is to understand that when you're angry, this is how you take 100% responsibility and thus not leave your state of health and happiness in anybody else's hand, is when you say, I'm angry because I hurt myself. And I have found that most of our anger comes back to us hurting ourselves, meaning we don't know how to express ourselves in a healthy way every day. And because we don't know how to express ourselves in a healthy way, we hurt ourselves. So just like you do something to me that hurts me and I'm going to get angry, most of us live in a way every day where we hurt ourselves. And so if we're hurting ourselves, then who are we really angry at? Well, we're angry at ourselves. And then we take it out on everybody around us, and then we blame everybody around us for why we're angry, when really we are angry at ourselves for not knowing how to express our feelings, for not knowing how to follow our heart, for not knowing how to say no, for not knowing how to take care of our minds, and for not knowing how to take time and space for ourselves every day just to be with ourselves. So that's really why we're angry. And so in my experience, the only way to be 100% free is to take 100% responsibility. And to do that, you have to say, I'm really angry at this person because I'm angry at myself. And I'm angry at myself because I'm hurting myself in this situation somehow, because I don't know how to love myself. I don't know how to value myself, which means I don't know how to express my feelings, as I said. I don't know how to act in integrity and overcome my fears or my shame. I don't know how to take care of my mind, all my crazy thoughts and negative self-talk. And I don't know how to take time and space for myself, even if people think I'm selfish. And that's really why we're angry at ourselves, and because we're hurting ourselves and we're letting ourselves get hurt because we never learned how to practically love and value ourselves. And that's the root cause. And when you get that is what unwinds all the knots that lead to anger. That's what alleviates all the symptoms. And in a lot of metaphysical views on disease and alternative medicine, anger is very strongly associated with cancer, repressed pain and cancer in the body. And when you have a lot of anger inside, you become very toxic, right? And the one of the quintessential addictions that comes from anger is alcohol addiction. And ironically, in Chinese medicine, the emotion of anger is associated with the liver, which is obviously the organ that gets the most damaged, the quickest when you have an alcohol addiction. And that's all you're drinking to numb, grief basically and anger. And then it comes out as anger and mistreating the people you love, when really inside you're hurting and you're angry because you really never learned how to love, value, and heal yourself.
It's very interesting because anger is very toxic. And what does your liver do? It filters out toxins. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody who's listening who has maybe children and, they're angry, their kids are angry, if you work on your anger, that's going to help your kids. But how are ways that you can work with your young kids who might be angry too? Because with kids, it's a little bit different and it might be a little bit hard for them to understand.
Absolutely. So the most important skill that any human being can learn is to understand and be aware of, what am I feeling right now? What do I need? And what do I want? So as a parent, it's really healthy for you to get in tune with what you feel, what you need, and what you want, so you can set a healthy example for your children of that type of mental and emotional awareness of yourself, that type of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And as you develop that, then what you can do is, when your child is reacting, is upset, is angry, is having a tantrum, won't calm down, you can start to enforce these 3 questions to them. What are you feeling right now? So I would actually just keep repeating, what are you feeling right now? When they're reacting, what are you feeling right now? What do you need right now? What do you need right now? What do you want right now? What do you want right now? And I would go back to those 3 phrases all the time. What are you feeling? What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? Why, and so they're going to develop this awareness, like, what do I call this when I'm like this? Oh, I'm angry, Dad. Yeah. Well, why are you angry? Well, Sophie took my toy, right? And so you help them to understand, this is what I'm feeling, this is why, and then, okay, well, what can we do about it? So it's really not that complicated. It's just our parents never learned this, so they couldn't teach us. And the teachers at school don't understand it, so they can't teach us. And if you had a religious upbringing, they don't teach this. When it's probably the simplest and most important thing that we could ever learn in our whole life is to be aware of what we're feeling right now, and then have the words, the language to articulate it in a healthy, nonviolent way.
Yeah, and that's a great way to diffuse, because you could be in a professional setting. Let's say you're at like a doctor's office and you work up front and you have a patient who comes up and they're just so angry, and you just ask a simple question, why are you angry? That could diffuse the whole situation, because they're telling you exactly what they need, and then maybe you're able to fix that solution, and now they leave and are very happy, and because you cared enough to ask them instead of like just yelling back at them. Now they go online, they write you a bad review, and it affects your business, all that kind of stuff. You can completely change it and shift it, where now they love and appreciate you now because of that.
Yes. Well, right. Because someone comes in angry, and, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm sorry, miss. And you start to kind of beat around the bush, because nobody really loves anger. So it triggers, even in a professional environment, it triggers all your unconscious stuff from your own childhood and your parents getting angry. And so people tend to shut down. But yeah, I think that could be an effective way to approach it. I can sense, I'm feeling that you're very angry. Can you explain to me why? What do you need? What can we do about this? But again, this is the language that we never learned. We often learned the opposite, where we blame, we attack, we get defensive, and that just puts up walls and makes things worse, both in a workplace and at home.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, sometimes we think someone else is angry at us, but really they could be angry because they got cut off just before they came to the meeting, and it has nothing to do with us, but we think it does, and then we react to that, and it just makes it much worse than it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you have your book. Now I wanted to ask you, why were you not born to suffer? Because I've heard some people say, life just sucks, you just suffer, and this is just the way life is. Why were we not born to suffer, do you think?
Well, I think, Johnny, everything comes down to a choice. So suffering is intrinsic to life. You can't avoid suffering, but you can avoid creating a significant amount of unnecessary suffering if you learn how to take care of and value yourself and your life in a really healthy way. But because most of us don't know how to take care of our mind, we don't know how to take care of our heart or our emotional life, and we don't know how to take care of our body, we create and allow a lot more suffering than is necessary on the earth. So for me, the feeling that I wasn't born to suffer was a really strong, real feeling for me. And that's where the title of the book came from, is I felt that in myself. And so I went seeking practical tools and mindsets that helped me alleviate my suffering and not hurt myself or put myself in situations to get hurt like I was doing a lot. And then when I started working with people one-on-one in a private practice, I used to say to my clients, we didn't come here to suffer. And it's just something for me that came out naturally, because I felt that, yes, there's going to be suffering in life, but we could actually enjoy our time here a lot more if we figure out how to not self-destruct and how to take better care of ourselves. And so, but as I've grown, what I've come to see so clearly is that it all comes down to a choice. And people don't realize that everything you think and everything you believe about life, yourself, suffering, it's a choice. You actually get to choose what you think about life. So if you have the choice to think this or think that, why wouldn't you think the thing that leads to health, happiness, and freedom instead of thinking the thing that keeps you trapped? So if your belief is life is suffering, it sucks, you're born and then you die, nobody cares about you, everybody's messed up, well, you don't realize that you are actually choosing that mindset. Even if you don't realize it, you are choosing it. And the result of choosing that mindset leads to thinking that way every day, behaving in that way every day, treating yourself in that way every day, treating other people in that way every day. And it really sabotages so much connection, so much health, so much joy that's possible while being here. Whereas if you choose a mindset that says, there is suffering in life, but I don't have to keep creating so much of it. I don't have to create so much extra. And I understand that what I think about life creates in a big way the experience that I have in life. Well, for me, where that thinking led me was that my suffering is really a cry from my soul teaching me to love and value myself more. Why? So that I can enjoy being alive more every day in and of itself. And then secondly, so that I could have healthy experiences of love and intimacy in my life, because I came to realize that if I wasn't really healthy and happy and had a good outlook on life, how could I have a healthy connection with another human being who also has a healthy outlook on life and healthy lifestyle habits? Because if I maintain a toxic outlook and toxic habits that come from a toxic outlook, I'm probably going to attract people into my life who are toxic, and then our relationships are going to be painful, and I'm going to be like, see, life is horrible, people suck, nobody cares anyways, it's not even worth it, it doesn't matter. And that's where nihilism kicks in, which is a choice. So the key is we all get to choose, and it's up to you. So when I'm talking to someone, I say, you get to choose. You want to be miserable? Go ahead. I'm going to go enjoy my life. I'm just putting the facts in front of you. This is just objective truth, objective facts. You want to go be miserable? Go ahead. I'm going to sleep at night. But if you want to have a better life, which is why I'm here having this conversation, you can make a better choice if you listen, if you try to understand how to make that choice, instead of making excuses and believing your own BS.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I absolutely love my mother, but my mom, that's how she is. She's very toxic. I grew up hanging out with kids. Some of them drug dealers, some of them gang members, some of them drinking. You ask yourself, it's like, why is my life so miserable? And then you look at everyone you hang out with. Everybody hang out with is all miserable, and that's probably why you're miserable. But when you shift and you change your life and you start hanging out with positive people who love life, they love life, you love life, and you realize, wow, you're so much more happier than the way it used to be. And that's the thing, just like as you said, we all have a choice. You just have to make a choice.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's hard, but the biggest thing is you have to just leave those people. You can't be around those toxic people. They're just not healthy for you.
Yeah, I hear you, and I grew up around a lot of toxicity too, so I get that. And you're right, because it's important for us to validate people who are listening. Sometimes this is really hard, but the choice you're presented with is, okay, both paths are hard, but the path where you stay in the suffering, you stay in the toxicity, it's hard and life is not worth living. Whereas when you make these choices, yes, it's actually very hard, and there are major implications. And yes, sometimes you have to walk away from important people or important situations, and it's very challenging. But the upside is that your life feels worth living because you have these meaningful, fulfilling, healthy connections that are pure, and you feel like there are good people in the world, and there's beauty in the world, and life can be good. It doesn't have to be so negative all the time. And then those moments keep you going, and they fuel you, and they make you feel that life is worth living.
Yeah, that's so very true. Now, wanted to ask you, how can one thrive every day instead of just surviving? Because sometimes that's what people do. It's like, they'll work at a job that they really hate it. They don't want to work there, but they don't feel that they have a choice, that they can go somewhere else or go to college because maybe they don't think they're smart enough, or they don't have enough money, or whatever that might be.
So a lot of times it's easy to focus on external factors or blame external factors, which are very real. It's funny, I was listening to an audiobook recently, and they talked about this study, and it was a study on happiness and what the leading cause of happiness is. And they had deduced and come to the conclusion that the leading cause of happiness is feeling that you have personal control over your life. That is the one thing that makes people happier than anything. Not money, not things. It's that you have the freedom, the control over your life to kind of live in the way you want to live, how you want to live, with whom you want to live. And that's why a lot of us think that money is the answer to that, because we think that's going to give us the freedom to have that kind of control and choice, which is not always the case, because we have to learn to work with the inner world. It's the inner world that needs to be transformed, because the outer world we're experiencing, our relationships, how we see the world, is all a mirror and a projection of what's going on in our mind, in our heart, in our subconscious. And so one thing I would recommend to people is, for example, learning meditation, a simple deep breathing meditation. And I would recommend doing it first thing in the morning before you do anything. So you can go to the bathroom, you can get some water, but otherwise go back to your bed, sit down or sit in a chair, and do at least 10 minutes of meditation in the morning where you observe your thinking. And most people are completely identified with their thoughts. They believe they are their thoughts. They believe they are their voice in their head. And that leads them to be the victim of their thoughts, the victim of the voices in their head, and held back by those thoughts and those voices in their head all the time. So if someone has these limiting beliefs that I can't do this because, and then fill in the blank, whatever that reason is, that is a habit of thought that you've been thinking for a long time, that you maybe inherited from your family, or you concluded for yourself from your upbringing and from wherever you are in your life. But that's a very limited way to think about yourself on a daily basis. But some people are so enmeshed with their thoughts and so totally identified with their thoughts that they can't get away from it. So the first step is you got to start to create some space where you can start to connect with the awareness and the consciousness inside of you. Some people call it the higher self, because if I say to you, Johnny, and I'm sure you've explored this for yourself, if you are just your thoughts, then what is the part of you that is aware that you're thinking, right? If I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about a bunch of stuff, what is the part of me that can be like, oh, I'm thinking about like 10 different things right now, or wow, my mind is really stressed out. So what's that part of me that can observe my thinking? Well, that's your higher self. That's your awareness. That's your consciousness. And we all need to start to connect with that more so that we can find that space inside of ourselves that's not addicted to and identified with these negative thoughts. So doing it first thing in the morning is key, because when you wake up, we all know often before our eyes even open, our thoughts are off in all these different directions. And in a lot of spiritual traditions, we talk about our thoughts and our mind being like a wild horse. You know, we wake up and the horse is gone. And we are not on the horse, right, riding it saying this is where we're going and why. We're not clear. We are being dragged behind the horse, being bloodied and cut up, you know, like begging for dear life, for some peace. And I don't, you know, I'm sure you can relate, most people can, that for me, when I woke up in the morning, it wasn't one horse. I was at the racetrack. I had like 50 horses. So I'm waking up and I got 50 horses out of the gate, and they're all going in different directions, and they're all telling me a different story, often that conflicted and contradicted itself. So I felt so confused, so paralyzed, so anxious by all these crazy thoughts. I didn't know what to do. And so taking just even 10 minutes, and I say 10 minutes because the truth is that nobody has an excuse not to take 10 minutes in the morning to do this. If I said taking half an hour, it'd be really easy to have an excuse. But 10 minutes shows you your own BS excuses, shows you how you're putting this off, and it's manageable. So anybody can take 10 minutes in the morning. You just wake up a little bit earlier. You can lock yourself in the bathroom if you have to. If you've got kids or family members, you just lock yourself in the toilet for 10 minutes. And you breathe deeply, you focus on your body, and you observe your thoughts for 10 minutes. And what you're going to come to see is that you don't need to believe everything you think, and that your thoughts come and go, and you get hooked by them, and then you chase them, but you don't have to if you just sit there. And eventually what starts to happen is this gap opens up between the thought and your awareness grows, your consciousness grows, it gets stronger, and it fills that gap between the thought and your true self. And then you can say, you know what, that I just keep limiting myself. That thought keeps limiting me. And now those limiting thoughts are very much tied up with fear and self-doubt. And so what happens is you feel, oh, I want to go pursue this, but then you have a thought, oh, it's not going to work out, or everything's going to go to shit. Everything's going to fall apart if I do this. So our heart, our soul guides us, but then fear and self-doubt stop us. So without doing some meditation in the morning, it's hard to see the fear and see the self-doubt when it comes up, and then realize that you actually have to follow your heart, and you have to be true to yourself, even though you're scared, even though you doubt yourself. Because the reason you doubt yourself, which means you don't trust yourself, is because you've been holding yourself back your whole life. You've been believing and living a very self-destructive story that doesn't serve you. Because when you're living this story of, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, you know, it's not going to work out for me, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're telling yourself a story to keep you safe, to keep you small. And what that really is an act of self-betrayal. And so when we do that on a daily basis, because we've learned that from family, and we have it as a habit for another reason, whatever the reason is, you think that you betray yourself, you can't trust yourself when you betray yourself and you hold yourself back. You don't trust yourself when you let fear and self-doubt stop you every day from pursuing a dream or a passion or an interest. And so the key is to start to understand this dynamic, that the only way to trust yourself again, to believe in yourself again, is to follow your heart, even when you're scared and you doubt yourself. But again, we need that gap that meditation creates, where your awareness can see your fear-based thoughts and see your self-doubt-based thoughts for what they are. But often we're so consumed by them and controlled by them that we don't know. We never know that there's an opportunity to do something about it, so we stay stuck.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I'm just thinking, so like when you wake up, you're having all these self-doubt thoughts. This is a great way to clear those thoughts, because a lot of times we're overwhelmed. We just have all this negative thoughts in our mind. It's like, why won't these voices stop? Just I'm going to do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And then you keep on hearing, no, 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 you can't. And it's interesting how we were tell ourselves how much we can't do things, but yet these things that we think to ourselves, we would never say this stuff to a friend. Like, for example, maybe you're in the elevator and you see this beautiful girl and you're like, don't talk to her because she's just going to think you're a dork or she's not going to talk to you, whatever. But if you had a friend who asked you, hey, what should I do? Hey, you should do this. But yet we would never do that ourselves. It's very interesting how our minds work.
Yes, and that brings us to the root cause, which is that most of us became our own worst enemy growing up instead of our own best friend. And that's really this healing journey, is how do I become my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy and really like a parasite to myself. And that, the fear, the self-doubt, shame, guilt, these things that we don't know how to address is what keep us toxic to ourselves. And then we're toxic to everybody around us when we're like that.
Yeah, and it's just not healthy. So for those who feel unworthy of love, but truly they want to heal, how can they begin to love themselves and begin to accept love from others? Because sometimes you meet people, they really, really want to be in a relationship. They want to be with somebody who really loves them for who they are, but they don't love themselves. You have to love yourself to love other people, I feel. How can they get exactly what they want, get true love, but how do they love themselves? Because a lot of times, maybe they don't love themselves because their mom and dad didn't love themselves.
Right, exactly. So again, it starts with our emotions in the present. It's being in tune with what do I feel, what do I need, what do I want, and learning that we have to express it in a kind way all the time. So feeling worthy of healthy love and good relationships is very much tied up with feeling worthy of your feelings and your needs and your desires. Because if you don't feel worthy of your feelings, if you don't feel worthy of your needs, if you don't feel worthy of your desires, you in effect feel you don't matter. And when you don't honor your feelings, your needs, and your desires, you're treating yourself in a way where you feel like you don't matter. And the result of that is always going to be this feeling and this perception that I don't matter to the people around me. So if you want to matter and have worth to the people around you, you have to say what I feel matters, what I need matters, what I want matters. Because when I say, who are you? We're not just our body. We're that inner world, that the way our heart and our mind experience life. So we need to be the ones that say, my feelings matter, my needs matter, my desires matter. And that's how we say my life matters. So even if you were an accident, from your parents, or even if you were unwanted, right? Even if you went through a bunch of shit and pain growing up, here we are. So what are you going to do? Are we going to spend the rest of our lives complaining about it? Or are we going to figure out how to make the most of it selfishly and say, I don't know if I really chose to come here. Some people believe that we choose our parents and we choose to come here. Some people don't believe that. But regardless, here you are. So if you didn't choose to be here or you did choose to be here, what you do with this life, with your decades or your years here, is your choice. And so we have to say, this life, my time on the planet matters. And to do that, we need to say, my feelings matter, my needs matter, my desires matter. And when you do that on a daily basis, that's how you start to feel worthy of good relationships, where you're with people who are good to you, who care about what you feel, who care about what you've been through. But if you don't care about what you feel, and you don't care about what you have been through, and you don't say it matters, and this has been real for me, meaning you don't validate it, how can you expect someone to do for you what you're not doing for yourself? And then that's what happens. Sometimes you meet a really amazing person and they try to do that for you, but because you haven't learned to love yourself yet, you push them away because you don't feel worthy still, and you don't believe you're lovable. You think there are all these things, we think there are all these things about us that make us unlovable. So we push away and sabotage potentially good things because we don't know how to say, my feelings matter, my needs matter, my desires matter, my goals in life, my calling, and my existence, my time here matters. Even if it doesn't matter to anybody else, it matters to me. Then when you start living from there, you meet people who you feel like you matter to. And that's the key.
Well, that's the thing, because you'll get people who meet probably awesome people who make a great partner, but they're self-sabotage those relationships, and they're just, well, there's no one perfect for me. But what they don't realize, maybe that person would have been a perfect husband or wife and would have been a great parent to your children. I mean, you'll just unfortunately never know until you change that. And it's nothing no one else can do for you. You got to do for it yourself.
Right. Because even if, like, for example, I've struggled with trust issues my whole life because I've been hurt by my parents, the people closest to me. And then I attracted and created situations where I was betrayed or hurt in relationships. So again, coming back to saying your feelings, your needs, your desires matter, when you do that, you get really good at communicating. So when you're in a situation with someone and some of your self-sabotage comes up, you're able to talk about it in a way that's really healthy. And instead of blaming or accusing, you can say things like, I feel really vulnerable, or I felt self-conscious, or I felt scared that I was going to lose you, or something was happening. And when you start to be good at communicating like that, you don't push people away by putting them in a box or, telling them they're a liar when they're not, or something like that. You don't make so many assumptions. You just are genuine. And then when someone really cares about you, they're going to see, oh, he's really got something he's struggling with, or she's got something she's struggling with. And I actually really like him for that, his vulnerability or her vulnerability. But again, you can't show these lovable, vulnerable parts of you if you don't know how to say, I feel a little insecure right now. When I didn't hear from you last night, my mind went to all these different places, like what really happened? Because I came up with some crazy ideas, or I assume the worst because I have disaster thinking, which a lot of us do, and our parents did. We always assume and think the worst, and that sabotages a lot of us. So again, it's all just about being able to communicate in a very kind, gentle, self-aware way. It really is the secret sauce to everything.
It's interesting because I'm just thinking, like, my mother, her mother never said that she loved her. And then my father, my mother used to tell me when they were married, my dad would sometimes literally cry. I mean, he's 30, 40 something years old and cry why his own mother never said that she loved him. And that's something he struggled, and he projected that on his own kids. Unfortunately, thank God my sisters and I, we've overcame that. But I mean, it can completely destroy a person.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that love is really the purpose of life. And so even though we get caught up with, chasing things or just putting food on the table, and underneath, is just a human who needed love, wants love, didn't know how to find it, didn't know how to love himself or herself. And we all try to pretend, like that it's all about something else. But when it comes down to being on your deathbed and people's biggest regrets, it all comes back to not taking care of ourselves, not taking care of the people we love, not being more real, not letting ourselves be happier. And it all comes back to these concepts of loving ourselves, loving others, doing what we love in life, valuing what means something to us.
Well, and that's why it's so incredibly important to love yourself, because then you realize it would be nice to get love from somebody else, but you gotta love yourself. That is very, very, very key.
Yeah, and when we don't love ourselves, we're a bottomless pit. We're a black hole. So it doesn't matter how much someone loves us, because it's never going to be enough to fill that void that only we can fill by knowing how to love ourselves practically on a daily basis. And just to clarify that again, it's expressing what we feel honestly and kindly. It's acting in integrity with that. Then it's taking time and space for ourselves so we can just do whatever we want or need to do for ourselves, not please other people, just be with our own thoughts and feelings, listen to our body, listen to our heart, listen to our mind. And then also the last part is taking care of our mind. This is one of the biggest overlooked aspects of self-love, is that we need to learn meditation so we can master our thought process, because our thoughts create a lot of our reality. They determine our behavior and our choices. And so if we have self-destructive and limiting thoughts, they affect how much we love ourselves and how much we're capable of loving other people. So we need to really learn how to work with our mind and our thoughts to love ourselves ultimately, optimally. So it's really not that complicated. These are just all the habits we never learned as children. And so because we don't know how to express our feelings kindly, because we don't know how to follow our heart all the time, because we don't know how to say, I need some time and space for myself today, and because we don't know how to meditate, every day that we don't do those things is a day and a situation where we're hurting ourselves. And that's what most of our habits that our brain, our nervous system, our subconscious are programmed to hurt ourselves because we've been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We don't know better. And then as soon as we start to really love ourselves, people will say, you're so selfish. You know, you only care about yourself. But the irony is that if I say to you, Johnny, you shouldn't do what you want to do, that's so selfish. You should do what I want you to do. Who's the selfish one? I'm selfishly telling you, you should do what I want you to do. So it's all a load of shit. You know, it's all BS because we just never learned what I call healthy selfishness, which is healthy self-love. And so not doing that is what I call unhealthy selfishness, which is internalizing your emotions, reacting, acting out, becoming bitter, becoming resentful, abusing food and alcohol and drugs because you're numbing your feelings. And that's unhealthy selfishness, which gives healthy selfishness or healthy self-love a bad name. And then that stops a lot of us from taking good care of ourselves because we don't want to be perceived as selfish or we don't want to deal with people's judgment. So we just keep doing the same stuff, getting the same results, hurting ourselves, hurting other people, not really understanding why we're stuck in this cycle, which is in Buddhism, they call the Wheel of Samsara. And in our culture, we call the hamster wheel, where we're just going in circles, chasing our tails round and round on the wheel of suffering because we never learned how to love ourselves practically in a healthy way.
A lot of people struggle with it. Well, and one of the things, because, you know, we're talking about the mind and all that kind of stuff, how can we make peace with our thoughts that are in our head? Because that's the thing. It's like sometimes you have these amazing positive thoughts. That's good. But then sometimes you have these negative thoughts in your head too. How do you make peace with that and realize, you know, hey, it's not true? Because that's the thing too. A lot of times we have all these fears in our mind, and is it really, really true? No, it's not true.
Right. So again, going back to some meditation in the morning is the key, because for me, I mean, meditation really saved my life. I was tortured mentally and emotionally for years, and meditation was the only thing that saved my life. And I'd say that my learning meditation and practicing on a regular basis has probably been the single most influential factor in me healing myself and me learning how to love myself. And I've now been able to help over 100,000 people in my life in a young age. And it all goes back to training my mind, all of it, because you can't heal 100% if you don't heal your mind at the core. So it goes back to this meditation. And as you practice meditation more and more, what you're really doing is you're learning how to breathe deep, feel your body, be in the present moment, not be lost in your thoughts. And what happens is the deeper you breathe, you literally, when you take a big deep breath, you expand from the inside out. And when you expand from the inside out, you're literally creating more space in your body. And the more space you create in your body through methodical, slow, deep breathing, you have more and more space to accept all the feelings and all the thoughts that come up in you without judging any of them or making them wrong or getting hooked and carried away by them. So again, that's why I keep coming back to meditation, because if you're in tune with your breathing and your body, and you can sit, and when you notice that you're thinking, come back to your breathing and come back to your body, then no matter what you think, you're just going to come back to your breathing and come back to your body. You can think good things. You can fantasize about pleasure. You can worry about destruction. And all you do is come back to your breathing and come back to your body. So for me, meditation was so key to my healing because it helped me become strong enough inside, mentally and energetically, to accept all of me, all the darkness, all the light, all the negativity and toxicity inside me, and then all the love and strength and healing energy inside of me. It gave me the space to accept it all. And then when you can accept all these parts of you, that's when you feel whole. That's when you feel like you're healing. One of my favorite quotes is from the psychologist Carl Jung, who said, "I don't want to be good, I want to be whole." And that's being able to be honest with yourself and accept your darkness and accept your light. And meditation is the key to that.
Now, for somebody who's listening, I mean, there are a lot of different types of meditation. For somebody who's listening, like, man, Blake, this sounds good. I'm struggling. I need to do meditation because this sounds like something that could really possibly save my life. Is there a certain type of meditation that they should do? Because as you said, waking up, start in the beginning, start with 10 minutes. Is there a certain type that they should do? Is there,
Absolutely. Yeah, so I have a couple old meditations on YouTube. If you Google my name, Blake Bauer Meditation, I'd look those up. They'll be very helpful. The specific technique is, and this is what the Buddha taught, going back 2,500, 3,000 years ago. So basically, you sit, and I like to sit with my eyes closed, but some of the places I'll send you might tell you to sit with your eyes open, which are okay too. But the technique is you sit, and you can lay down. It's better to sit. You close your eyes, you breathe through your nose, and you just focus your attention on feeling your body and feeling the breath come in and go out. And then when you start to think about anything or anyone, which you will, when the voices in your head are active, you say the word thinking to yourself in your mind. You say thinking. So it's an objective label on the fact that you're thinking. So you're thinking, you say in your mind thinking, and then when you say thinking, it's your cue to bring your attention back to your breathing and back to your body. So every time you say to yourself thinking, you then make a choice to bring your attention back to your breathing and your body instead of letting yourself get lost in thought. And the more you do these reps, just like building your biceps or building your butt at the gym, the stronger this muscle is going to get, which means the stronger your capacity to choose to come back to your breathing and your body's going to get every day, all day when you're not meditating. So you can choose a better thought. You can choose not to react and say the mean thing, but to take a deep breath and realize you're hurt, realize you're angry, and then say something honest and kind instead of mean and destructive and toxic. So again, I Google my name, meditation. There's some old ones. They're very good. Otherwise, I will look up Vipassana meditation. Vipassana meditation. It's Buddhist meditation. But, a lot of meditation techniques add a lot of extra stuff. A lot of people do mantras, which come from the Hindu traditions, which are great. A lot of people visualize energy or visualize light. A lot of people listen to music. And these are all wonderful. But the truth is that none of them, not one of them, is as powerful or effective as just sitting there with no music, no nothing, not adding a mantra, not adding a visualization, but just focusing on your breathing and your body. And when you start to think, you say thinking and you come back to your breathing and you come back to your body. That is the key. It is the secret. It is the hardest, but it is the most effective and the most powerful. And the truth is we can't heal completely until we heal this part of our mind, until we learn to choose to come back to our breathing and our body when our mind is running away and when our mind is destroying us. And nothing can substitute for that. So I'm very close to a Buddhist organization in the United States called Shambhala Buddhism. And they have meditation centers in most states and major cities. I highly recommend going to one of their meditation classes and learning. I'm not a Buddhist. I only teach at some of their retreat centers. But I first learned meditation through one of their meditation centers, and I swear to God, it saved my life. And all it is you sit, you breathe, you focus on your body, you feel the breath and come in and go out. When your mind begins to wander, you say the word thinking, you come back to your breathing, you come back to your body. And if you can do this for 10 minutes in the morning, just even starting with the goal of 30 days, you will completely turn your life around, completely change your life. You will feel so empowered, it'll blow your mind. But the key is you got to do it. It's just like I said, you want biceps, you want a great butt, and you just think about going to the gym, well, that's not going to do it. You watch videos about people doing these exercises, well, that's not going to do it. You got to do the reps. You have to go do the reps.
Got to do the work. Yeah, because I think for some people, the challenge with meditation is my mind, it won't calm down. It won't stop thinking. They have a hard time shutting off their mind, but saying the thinking, that will help you shut off your mind and just focus on your breaths.
Exactly. And the key is, even if you can't stop thinking, you just need to sit there and breathe for the entire time that you decide, that 10 minutes. You just can't do anything else. So the idea is to face your mind. It's like looking in a mirror. So you're just sitting there looking in the mirror of your mind, getting to know what's really there, which most people are going to see is pretty out of control, is pretty all over the place, is not very sane or rational. And that's what's going on inside. So what are you going to do about it? And there are lots of tools. So I'm getting ready to make a video. A lot of people say, I can't meditate based on what you're saying. But that is the biggest BS excuse. And if you keep saying that to yourself, you're going to be stuck forever. So that is not a true statement. You just keep convincing ourselves that we can't meditate. Anybody can meditate. You just need good instruction. And you need to stop making excuses. So I don't want you don't have to say, oh, I can meditate, but at least don't say, I can't meditate, because you can. And it's a load of, it's not true.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like, some people say, well, it doesn't work. Have you tried? No. What's the worst thing that could happen by trying meditation for 30 days, just like you said? What's the worst thing? What's the best thing? It could completely change your life, like you said it has for you.
It will 100% change your life if you do it, but you got to do it.
Yeah, I love it. That's good. Now, what I wanted to ask you about, just want to ask you, what are the keys to shaping the life that you want? Yeah, because a lot of times we know, or we have an idea of the kind of life that we want. I want to be happy. Maybe I want to get married, have kids, but like, what are like the defined keys that if you do this would definitely help you be in the right path?
Absolutely. So I'm going to work backwards from where we just were in our conversation, because I'm kind of re-driving home everything we've talked about. So one, you got to take care of your mind. So if you want to have the life you want, like whatever you dream of, whatever your goals are, you have to master your mind, because those thoughts you think in the morning actually shape your day. So when you wake up and you're all over the place and you're anxious and you're spread thin and you're fragmented and you're stressed, well, don't you get up and that's the kind of day you live? You're all over the place. You're stressed. You're running anxiously from one place to the other. There's never time. There's never space, because you're just running. And so that's why you need to pause first thing in the morning, create that space, move more slowly, move more intentionally, be more present. So it all starts there. So that's number one. You got to take care of your mind. And if you don't take care of your mind's going to destroy you. So we need to be aware of that. Number two, like I said earlier, everybody needs a bit of time and space for themselves every day. Even if it's just a half hour to take a walk or just whatever it is, you need a half hour to yourself to get some fresh air, to listen to some music, to take a bath, to exercise. You need time for yourself every day. Okay. And with that time, you can take care of your mind. You can research. You can find clarity. You'll feel more clear in yourself. So you need that. The third thing is going back to, you got to express your feelings, your needs, and your desires honestly and kindly every day. So you got to be real with everybody in your life every day, but you have to do it in a kind way. So again, instead of saying, F you, get away from me, you need to say, I feel hurt. So those three phrases, again, we were talking about with parenting, are the keys. I feel hurt. I feel angry. I need some quality time. I need some time for myself. I need honest communication between us. I need us to respect each other. So I feel, I need, I want. I really want to have an hour for myself today, to take care of myself, to exercise, etc. Instead of, you're so selfish, you only care about yourself, I can never get a break. Instead of, I am coming from this clear place, I need an hour for myself today to do X, Y, and Z, and I really need your support. And when you can talk like that, It doesn't put up walls. People understand, they hear you, because the truth is that everybody has feelings. Everybody has needs. Everybody has desires. And so when you honor them in yourself, then you are more capable of understanding that, oh, Johnny, you have feelings too, and you have needs too, and I should respect them because I want you to respect mine, so I should respect yours. And then it just transforms everything. So being able to be real but kind in every situation, and then following your heart. So acting in integrity, because a lot of times we feel one thing, but we do the other, right? We do the opposite of what we feel out of fear, out of self-doubt. And so the key is to know that you have to be true to yourself, even though you're scared, even though you doubt yourself, because that's actually the only way to heal the fear and the self-doubt. There's no way around it. You got to go through it. So even when you're shaking and you are scared and you don't think it's going to work out, you got to be true to yourself.
That's good. And asking what you want, but of course, in a kind way. That's very, very, very key. Now, we're going to start to wind down. What are some things that you love for people to take away from this, Blake?
I would say that, we all kind of come into this world, for different reasons. Some of us were not wanted. Some of us were wanted. Some of us know that we were a mistake. Some of us feel like we were loved and wanted. But at the end of the day, this is your life. And you're the one who has to choose to enjoy it, make the most of it, be your best, do your best. So that, again, comes down to saying, I matter. My feelings matter. My needs matter. My goals matter. My calling in life, my connection to the universe matters. And it's really important to get to that place where you give yourself permission to say, I matter, because that's how you give yourself permission to say, I am worthy of being happy. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of a good life, is when you can say, I matter in that way. And then part of that dynamic, which I think is really misunderstood, is going back to this kindness I was talking about. Because the truth is when you mistreat people around you, besides just yourself, when you mistreat other people, so you're not kind and you're not good to other people, deep down you're going to feel like you're not worthy of good things, because you're being unkind, you're being mean, you're being selfish in that way. That's not healthy. And when you know that on a deep level, you're going to feel unworthy of good things. You're going to feel unworthy of love. So one of the secrets to feeling worthy and to having a good life is really being the best human you can be. That doesn't mean you just please everybody and hurt yourself trying to take care of everybody, but it means that you're always real, you're always kind, you try and do your best, you try and do the right thing, and then life really will show up for you. Like karma is either a bitch or a good friend, but it's all up to you.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. That's now for people who want to find you online, Blake, how can they find your book? I know on your website they can read the first 65 pages. How can they hire you as a coach, and what can I kind of expect from you as well?
Well, I think Amazon's the best place to start. You can find my book. It's on audio, Kindle, paperback, and it's very powerful, very effective. It's got questions and practices after every chapter that really help you unlock whatever's stuck inside you. So I recommend getting a diary or a notebook and just working through the book. That's going to be really the most powerful thing. And then pre-COVID, I teach retreats throughout the year, so you can come spend a weekend or a week with me. And that's all on hold at the moment because of what's going on in the world. So I would just keep an eye. You can go on my website, which is unconditional-selflove.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And you can just keep an eye out for when I have events coming back up. I've got them scheduled starting in the beginning of 2021, but it's looking like early 2021 won't go ahead because I think we're still going to have social distancing and issues with travel at that time. But eventually I'll be back open for some seminars and retreats.
Okay, that's really good. And then you're working on a new book as well. How's that going to be different than your current book?
Just a refinement of some of these ideas. Since I published my first book, it's now been about 8 years since the first edition of my first book. And I've worked with a lot of people in that time, grown a lot, lost I lost a brother to heroin in that time. I lost my father in that time. My mom got sick and almost passed away in that time. So I've learned about a lot, both personally and professionally, about basically creating the healthiest relationship to ourselves as a precursor to the healthiest relationships with other people. So it's really just a refinement of you were not born to suffer, an expansion, kind of taking the next step.
That's good. Well, thank you so much, Blake, man. I really, really, really appreciate you being on the Power of Your Voice podcast.
Oh, Johnny, thanks for having me. It was great to meet you.
You're very welcome.